I intend to close the executive session and ask for a poll of the councilors to their willingness to agree. Councilor McHugh.
Aye.
Councilor Uriarte Moore.
Aye.
Councilor Manadonis. Motion aye. The executive session, the closed meeting is hereby secured. We are ready to move to a recess in order to invite the public in for the remainder of the meeting.
Patrick, do you want to open the door?
Is that my signal?
By the way, guys, thanks. I appreciate the.
It was valuable to me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
That's what I'm doing.
You're ready.
So let's try
Ma'am?
to stay in your seat tonight, all right? Stay in your seat tonight.
I might get up.
Sit down.
I might get up.
Madam Clerk, are you ready? We will call the meeting back to order from its recess and ask that you join us in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item of business is an announcement. It's a request that was made for a discussion on Town Way to be placed on tonight's agenda, will be continued to a future council meeting. We expect to have the data necessary, have that conversation by 24th of October. Approval of minutes.
Are there any other announcements? I have an announcement.
Please.
I'd like to wish Andrew Uriarte Moore a happy birthday today.
That's not mine.
It's not your birthday today? Someone very close to Andrew's birthday today. It's not your birthday today?
No.
Got you.
Somebody's birthday today, who knows?
Well, you have to have one now.
It's my announcement. When is your birthday?
September 25th.
Nah. I
Pray
missed it.
tell, is there a third announcement?
No.
Motion to approve the minutes of the October 5th, 2023 meeting as written, unless anybody has any comments.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is department head reports, first and only that of the police chief.
Motion place police department report for September 2023 on file, unless anybody has any comments on that.
Second.
Discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we move to old business. First is to review the initiatives being taken to consider additional means of deterring crop damage by birds. If you recall, what we, where we left off with that is that we have a series of things that we're going to do in what I'll call the off-season in an effort to get at the beginning of the corn season next year to be out ahead of the plan. We've done a step one, Council.
So on October 4th, Tyler Young initiated a meeting at his farm on October 4th, which is the farm that's across from Cole Walker's farm. on October 4th at 2:30 PM with the following attendees. There was Senator Lou DePalma, DEM Director Terry Gray, DEM Chief of Agriculture Division Ken Ayers, DEM Legislative Liaison Ryan Mulcahy, Tyler Young, Bob Mushin, and myself. It seemed that Ian Walker was trying to use the Right to Farm Act to say it was okay to do his crop cannons. As I've stated before, I sat up there for 2 different days for half an hour. One day there was 28 cannon blasts in that half an hour. Another day there was 32. So that's 60 cannon blasts an hour. So that's 600 cannon blasts a day that people are having to listen to. So when we were discussing this with Ken Ayers, he said, yes, he has the ability to use the Right to Farm Act, but also there's a clause in there that he can't create a nuisance. So 600 blasts a day, we all kind of agreed that that was a nuisance. So Ken said he was going to discuss that with Ian Walker. Another thing that we did, the trust owns the land where the cannons were in Town Wade neighborhood. And we were going to discuss that with the Ag Trust to see if they're going to lease land again to anybody that's going to grow corn or they're going to have necessary for crop cannons, that they lease that land away from residential areas. And then we also discussed about other ways for bird deterrence. They said there probably isn't going to be an avenue where there won't be any blasts, but there'll be considerably less, maybe 10 an hour. I'm not sure. We haven't gotten that far yet. One of my thoughts was maybe we could ask the Ag Trust, since it's their land, if they would help out financially, buying some of these other forms of deterrence. And we still had to follow up on that. And then we're going to stay on top of this through the winter months to work with DEM, with Ian Walker, and Senator DePalma and Bob and I. So we're not going to forget about this. This isn't just going to be okay next July. You're going to hear crop cannons again. We're going to try to do something so that whoever's growing corn can keep growing their corn, because we all want that to happen, but we don't want the nuisance that's associated with it. So that's enough.
We obviously have people in town that can grow corn successfully without neighbors being driven out of their houses. And so we think it's possible.
Right.
And it may be monetary, and if it's monetary, then we're intent on finding, in this era of availability of funds to do most anything post-COVID, there seems to be an abundance of state and federal money for all sorts of reasons. We're going to find some of that in order to be able to procure some of these technologies and see if we can't implement them on farms in Little Compton as, first of all, the fix for the particular problem, but also ultimately to be a test platform for how else can we do this bird deterrence. So that's we're at step one.
Thank you both for doing that. Are there other farmers engaged in this, or is Tyler kind of like the liaison between this group and the farmers?
Tyler was the main person that wanted to get this resolved. Obviously, he's a farmer. He doesn't want to be grouped into all these farmers are using crop cans, because you'll have people that are 5 miles away and they've told me, why are you picking on the farmers? Why are you picking on the farmers? And I said, go sit up there and listen to the cannons and see them if you would want them, a quarter of a mile away from where you live. And so it's kind of a sticky situation, but it has to get resolved somehow. And, we're not right at the avenue where we're going to say, well, this is what's going to happen. We don't want to shut Ian down. We don't want to say you're breaking the law, you're breaking the noise ordinance, because that's what he's doing, okay? But we don't want to hurt the farmers. You know, I'm a fisherman. I feel the same way. I don't want to be hurt by something. If there's a solution to it, let's find the solution and see what happens, okay? So as I say, Bob and I are on top of this. I don't think there's a lot of other guys that are growing corn. I know Skip Paul doesn't grow corn. Tyler said he does. Ian does, obviously. And obviously there was no problem because Ian didn't grow corn last year, so there was no crop cannon. So we're on top of it, and hopefully we'll have a resolution before the next season starts. Guess, Steve.
A quick question. I know there was some discussion about bringing out some folks from URI for that meeting, and I believe Rebecca Brown was the young woman's name that has developed some laser technology. Was that discussion involved in anything at all, or?
That absolutely was. Ken Ayers was going to see if there was still, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, URI and DEM were working together to find other solutions for this, because it's not only happening in Little Compton. And they actually had laser apparatus to keep the birds out of the corn. And Ken Ayers was going to look into that, see if we could find any of those apparatus. Right now, what they're doing on the mussel farms is they're having the same problem when the birds sit on the balls that surround the mussel farms. They defecate into the water, so they're trying to get it so that those birds aren't sitting on the, or going anywhere near the mussel farms. So they're using laser apparatus on those. So there is things being done to curtail this problem. It's not only on land, it's also on water. So, yeah, we're going to be working with Rebecca Brown was mentioned quite a few times. One of them by me. I said I had spoken to her several times, and she was willing to come down and help out. We just don't think it's right now is the right time for her. So, but we're probably going to meet again with them before the 1st of December and through the winter and try to come up with a solution.
We have a series of completely unrelated ordinance changes that need to be given attention before the 1st of the year. I would expect that in December, we would come back to you with a next report of where we stand, and then get those into place that have to be done by the 1st of January. And then we would get on some sort of a schedule where we're reporting to the public on a regular basis. Here's where it stands, so that we enter into the next growing season with those questions on the table and answers put forward, so that you can expect something different than
Just
you.
a comment, Mr. Bush. So I sent an email to Mr. Richardson, the chair of the Ag Trust,
Okay,
making him aware of the situation, because I've reviewed the lease on this land. And the Ag Trust owns the land. They lease it to Farrell Bank, who in turn sublets to
walkers.
Walkers. And I said, would they consider on some of their leases? Because I reviewed the whole lease. There was not one word in that lease in regards to peaceful, quiet, whatever for the community. It protected the leaseor and the leasing. So I had said, would you guys consider this? And he sent me a return email. I think I copied both you gentlemen on it. If I haven't, I'll send it to you. If I thought he copied you on it, but he might have just copied the Ag Trust. And because I had said, if that lease is up, it's up this December. So I just wanted to, I'm going to go to the next Ag Trust meeting. I think it's the 1st of November, and just raise my hand and see if I can speak for a few minutes and see where that situation, I'm glad this is developing. And I think a lot of the neighbors here are glad that this is developing and we're making progress, but.
Who did you say that you spoke with?
I think.
Bill
Bill
Richmond?
Richmond.
I'm sorry, I had the
Good,
wrong.
okay.
I sent him.
That's the chair.
I will send you, I thought I copied both you.
And now that you describe it, I think that you did. I wasn't smart enough to look for the language that you're speaking about right now, but I believe I have the document.
I'll resend the communication to both you guys, and I have a copy of the land lease as well that I'll try and put into the PDF as well. So you can-
Okay,
Yeah, as you and I discussed, I think it's pertinent for the ag trust before they lease land, to ask the farmers, are you gonna farm it? Because they leased it to Mr. Peckham, and Mr. Peckham leased it to Ian Walker. So I think it's pertinent for them to find out if they're gonna lease it to somebody, what that person's gonna do on that piece of property. And if they say, well, I'm gonna lease it out to somebody else, I'm not sure why it's leased to Mr. Peckham, and then he subleases it to Ian. Why isn't it leased right directly to Ian? I'm not sure about that. So Bob and I are gonna have a talk with Mr. Richmond, probably after the first of the year, once we get through these ordinance changes. But I think they have some play in this. They can say, okay, tell us what you're gonna grow on that property. Tell us what you're gonna use to keep the birds out. And if it's a quarter of a mile from a heavily settled area, then that's not gonna work. They keep
50
saying,
yards
right,
from
right.
definitely.
They keep saying they own all this farmland and all this agricultural land. Well, you know, I asked Tyler Young about that. He says, well, you can only grow corn in certain areas. Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not a farmer. But I think they have to have a responsibility to the citizens of this town to know what's going to be done with their property when they lease it. And I think that's, you know, by you going, we had discussed you going to the meeting and bringing these facts up to them as a citizen. And then we're going to get involved with it in January, which will give us 6 months before we're going to hear any kind of noise or anything. And hopefully we'll get it abated by then.
I appreciate your gentleman's support.
Thank you.
All right. The next item of business,
Before you move on, I'm concerned from my clerk's perspective that I'm supposed to be notifying these farmers of discussions, and I've not been given enough direction to give them notice for, because we were supposed to get notice for receiving a report, and you've received a report, but I want to tell the farmers that this discussion is ongoing.
and they were not properly,
Well, they had not been because it was a little wishy-washy as to when this report was gonna come in. So I need to notify them, and I would like to be able to say that at some future council meeting, you're gonna bring this back to start talking about again.
right.
So if you can pick a date in the prospective month that you think you're gonna bring this back, so I can notice them.
I think you can tell them now that it would be at the first meeting of January. I hope we can beat that, but it will be the first meeting of January.
I won't be here at that meeting, so,
Then I will bring it on the first meeting of January.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I don't see why, do you think we'd have time to do it? Meeting, the last meeting in December?
Well, that's what I say. I think we'll try to beat that, but let's at
Well, I
least.
don't want to tell them the first meeting in January and then have you do something in December and I have to renotice them again.
Why don't we do it the last meeting in December? I'm certain that I want to talk to DEM or Tyler Young again about this. I'm definitely going to talk to Ken Ayers to see if he's talked to Ian Walker about it, to get Ian Walker's gist on, you know, whether he's going to want to work with us or whether.
We can provide the report and entertain discussion about the report at the second meeting in December.
December.
All right, thank you.
The next item of business is a verbal report from the solicitor regarding discussion with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management legal representatives concerning town landing and a recent request for designated parking spaces for town residents.
Well, excuse me, I have to give credit actually to DEM Legal and the staff that they have at Open Space. They've been very responsive. The first question was to trace the money that was used for the improvements at the town landing, and it appears that this springs from a law that was originally passed by the General Assembly in 2014. It's 2014 Rhode Island Public Laws 145, Article 5. And it's including but not limited to funds from that year, Clean Water, Open Space, and Healthy Communities, and subsequent additions to that grouping. Now, what the DEM did was pass some regulations for properties that received these grants. And that's found at 250-RICR-110-00-7. That's the DEM's rules and regulations. In this case, Part 7 is for these recreational grant programs. The relevant section that they directed me to is 7.7F, and it says discrimination. Any property acquired and or developed with funds from this bond authorization shall not discriminate against persons desiring to use said property on the basis of residence, including preferential reservation, membership, or annual permit systems which are prohibited. However, with approval of the department, project sponsors may impose reasonable limits on the type and extent of use of areas and facilities required or developed with this fund when such a limitation is necessary for the maintenance or preservation of property. DEM Legal told me that this is the section, and this is the regulation that governs the question as to whether or not, A, you can limit the parking at this site to residents, or restrict parking in there to a certain amount of spaces for out-of-towners. So you can't do that in the first instance. However, with the assent of DEM, there can be restrictions placed on there of this nature. You have to make a showing as to why you need to do that and why it's necessary for the maintenance of the property. On that basis, my suggestion for you is to refer this matter to the town administrator and to your chief of police to contact DEM to determine what they will permit in the way of a restriction in for parking, and a certain set aside for residential parking, certain set aside for non-residential parking.
We have, in the past, I don't need to lecture those of you who are quite familiar with Town Landing about its overuse, but when that happens, since we get access, we, the town, get access to Town Landing by easements across private properties, the people who live on those, or who own those private properties, are subject to the overflow parking in their yards and that sort of thing. So I think we have at least a arguable case that says we would like that relief. And so I will work with the police chief and the administrator in that regard, because I believe that we can make a proposal that says, and those of you who've written to us have been helpful in saying things like, let's use the transfer station sticker as evidence of the person being from Little Compton. Those kinds of things are the types of ways that we can make this at least an enforceable thing. My concern is that it's kind of the opposite side of that question, that is the fact that Town Landing is nominally at the end of the world, and we don't frankly want the police force during the entire surfing season to be at Town Landing arresting parking violators. So I think we need something strongly stated that says to somebody who intends to decide that they're going to park somewhere, that they will think again. You all have also made the case that's been made already with respect to Secundit Point, and it's likely needing to be at Town Landing as well, that a $10 or $20 parking ticket is just the ticket to ride. That's not really anything that is a deterrent. So we are already in the process of changing our ordinances to raise that number, and this will add impetus to that as well, so that we can, I hope, propose to DEM that we have a unique situation. Of course, everyone has a unique situation, but I believe ours can be described that way, and that we would like to do the limitations that you're saying are possible. Take a breath. Yes.
Sal Marinosi from Townway and Oliver Lane. This just brought up a question in my mind about the grant that we're getting for the improvement at the end of Townway. And what are the requirements of that grant of the town and the town's responsibility with regards to parking, et cetera? Are there any unforeseen problems in us accepting that grant for that improvement? And what does that do? Does that expose us in another way at that point? Because, you know, as you know, my house is right there.
I will say categorically that the source is different, but I don't know the exact, I don't know.
I would like to know
It is
that
not-
answer.
I can run that down.
I would really appreciate that.
I can
This is
actually
true.
run it down.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
MRP is the source of those funds
Okay,
from the infrastructure bank.
okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, another, yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. My name's Grace Knight. My parents are Little Compton residents. I'm a frequenter of the town landing. My family and I are there probably 2 or 3 times a week. My partner's a surfer. And we are just a little bit concerned with the motion to provide restrictions for access. We understand that there are stipulations in the grant funds that do allow for this type of restriction to be put in place. But as a frequenter of this park and this space, the amount of times that it's overflowed throughout the season is minimal. Again, as someone who's there on a weekly basis, multiple times a week, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, the amount of times we've seen more than 3 people there at a time has maybe been 4 or 5. One of the most occupied we've seen it was during this past hurricane season. And yes, there were probably 25 or 30 cars there. Now, when we think about that on the scale of the everyday use, it's very minimal. And so I would respectfully like to push back that this is the lack of restriction of access is in some way providing overuse or continual damage to the overall infrastructure that this town landing is, that the town landing has. I just don't see that as a frequenter. Again, the access ways are very infrequently overflooded with people. And my concern not only comes from being a young person who is trying to access this and really just trying to enjoy the outdoor space, it also comes as being a Rhode Islander and the fear of further restricting access to our shoreline and to our recreational spaces. I read that the gentleman who brought this motion forward is a resident of Little Compton, and he lives in a private area that has access to a private beach. I think that when we're talking about restricting access, we really need to raise a further question of, is this for the betterment of a selected group or for everyone who's involved? I know that Little Compton is a strong supporter of protection of environmental spaces, and it is one of the things I have really come to love about this community. I just worry that if we push further restrictions on who can provide access to the shoreline and can gain access, it's going to further limit the younger community in our search for adventure and really just enjoyment of our outdoor spaces. So I would just like to also ask is that I would suggest the council reaching out to other recipients of this grant who maybe struggle with parking situations and ask them how they've handled it, because I would really like to see if other recipients throughout the state who received this also have imposed parking restrictions. And then I would like to finish with the fact that one of the beautiful stories behind the landing is the story of Simmons. And in her will, she provided that she wanted this to have access for everyone, free for all. And I don't think that is only regulated by who is a resident part-time or full-time in Little Compton. And so I would just ask the council to respectfully just keep in mind the youth and those who are trying to access this space and come up with more innovative ways of protecting the land.
Yeah, actually, the will, where she granted it, was to be restricted to Little Compton residents. The reason that it's open now is because the town received a grant from DEM, and the DEM grant said that it has to be, you can't have restrictions on that. So it doesn't spring from the gift itself, because the gift was to the town of Little Compton and its residents.
Any other comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to bring up again, the group is asking to restrict access in it. I mean, we're talking about ensuring access for the community by designating some parking spots for the community members. We're not asking the council to restrict access to the land.
Okay.
I know a few of us said this last meeting too, but just to consider it a counterpoint, it does get a lot more crowded than that. And I know I'm not alone in being one of the frequenters who actually goes there less frequently since the parking lot has been put into place because of all of the times that I've been shut out. So that was part of where this sprung from, was just sort of this place that many of us used to go who live in town and have sort of resorted to going elsewhere because of how much of a mess the parking situation has become.
Okay.
Mr. President, I hate to bring this up now, but under Communications 4
Yes,
is actually tied into what we're discussing now.
yes,
That's a request to use this as for a wedding ceremony.
right.
Now, I think under the grant, because I did ask, the council can grant that use. However, the way that things stand now, it can't be closed off.
Right.
So they're gonna have to come jostle the spaces themselves.
Whenever,
Like Mrs. Knight said, this is an occurrence, unfortunately. The reason why that parking lot was changed over is because the surface want to go down there. And when the surface is up after a storm. So after a storm or during the storm, you get all the rain. Well, everybody was driving down there and leaving ruts, and everybody's gonna go surfing for an hour, but they had to get right down to the beach to unload their surfboard. So they're leaving ruts everywhere. The place was getting to be in disrepair. It looked horrible. So a gentleman came up and he devised a plan, brought it to the council. We thought it was a good idea. We still think it's a good idea. But the overflow only happens on a surfing event or a storm event. And you have to restrict it so that people just don't go and just drive over the grass and do whatever they want, or let's get down there, slide sideways, through it. We're trying to keep it nice for like a park, so people can park and they can go down there and walk around. Also, you got those cliffs, and people don't realize that those cliffs overhang 2 or 3 or 4 feet on the top. And I see people walking on those because I go down there myself. And I tell them, you're walking on air, there's nothing underneath you. That was another situation where we didn't want people driving down there and falling off the cliff or walking and falling off the cliff. But these events only happen after a storm when the surf is up. Majority of the time that I've been down there, it's not a problem because people just go down there to look at the ocean, to walk around. So we've granted wedding ceremonies down there previously. I don't think we've ever denied one because it's just where they have the wedding ceremony, then they go and have the reception somewhere else. We've never denied anybody that. And generally, they realize if they know that area, they know not to have one person come in one car. They'll generally carpool. So 15 to 20 people are going to come in, maybe 5 or 6 cars. So I think it's a little different situation. But these events, like Ms. Knight said, only happen whenever there's a storm. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of storms this fall. And that's why this brought this to a head right at this moment, so.
All right.
Excuse me. Could I say something quickly about
Yes,
this?
sure.
If these events are only happening when the surf is up and after big storms, it seems to me like it would be a waste of town resources to have somebody monitoring that parking lot outside of those times. Like if you're just concerned about those 3, 4, 5, I'll give you 6 times a year, an avid surfer, I know how often the parking lot fills up. If these only happen 6 times a year, you don't need to restrict access the other 359 days a year.
Well, see, this is a quandrum because that's your feeling.
Yeah.
There's other people in the back of the room that have a totally different feeling. So what we're trying to do is trying to create something to try to make everybody happy, which is never going to happen. Okay, so, and when I say when half the people leave mad, half the people leave happy, or they all groan when they're leaving, then we've done our job. You know, if one half says yay and the other half says boo, then we haven't done our job. They all leave smiling or they leave groaning, then we've done our job. So we're just trying to come to a situation like with the crop cannons. There's a problem. You know, we're not miracle workers. We're trying to solve through problems, trying to take this person's view, and try to come with a solution. So, I mean, I agree with you, it's gonna be a real problem for the police force to go down there and spend time down there, because they're gonna be taken away from patrols on the road. Well, we need them. Sir.
Is this town landing under the guise or supervision of the recreation department?
I don't think it ever has been, no.
No.
It's been under the guise for the town council.
That's it.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I would entertain a motion to adopt the solicitor's recommendation that the administrator and police chief approach DEM for a description of what constraints we have so that we know precisely what we're dealing with. And then that will inform our next step.
So at what point are we going to approach them with a specific proposal? In terms of like, well, we're thinking we want to restrict half the parking spaces. I'm not saying that's what it is, but, you know.
Yeah, actually, to the point of the young lady and the gentleman next to her, that's part of what DEM does, and they'll analyze the situation, and they'll work with the town on this to come up with some type of a solution.
Okay.
So I think that the outreach has to be made, but this isn't a situation where it's a DEM will just be a yes or a no.
Right.
I think DEM will get involved and take a look at the whole situation and provide a circumstance. The request was, what do other cities and towns do? The response to that, it would come from DEM, and I think you get some good advice and analysis from DEM on the matter.
So DEM will be helping guide what the outcome is.
Not
correct.
Right. I would not see them approaching DEM with, here's what we want to do, tell us whether we can or not.
Right.
Rather, we are looking at how we can accommodate both occasional visitors from outside of town and more regular visitors inside the town. What constraints do you have? So that we're dealing with facts from what we don't get ourselves into a situation where we're in violation of some responsibility that we have under the funds we've borrowed, or funds we've been granted. Is there a motion in that respect?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to so task the town administrator and police chief. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, one more remark. So in terms of the existing ordinance that's been in place since, is it 1980? For town residents only. I just wonder how that plays into our thinking about how we feel about, some in, some out, just what degree we follow an ordinance that's in place.
I understand your question. I'm not trying to read the minds of who it was that changed. If you recall, in the deed, I believe the word is community. The landing is given to the community.
Right.
That was translated in our ordinance to say a resident of the town, if I'm remembering it correctly.
That's correct, but to answer your question, that ordinance has been forwarded to DEM.
Right.
I gave a package to DEM on all of the issues, how the land was acquired, the language in the will, the ordinance. So they have that now, and I think that they have a package from the town for when the town goes to talk to them.
And is that responsibility on them if we had an existing ordinance and they gave the grant? Is that responsibility, where does that responsibility lie?
That's all going to be fleshed out. The issues that you're raising now have already been raised with DEM.
Did I vote?
I was
I
just
didn't know
wondering
no
if
vote was taken.
No vote, yeah.
that ordinance wasn't disclosed during the application.
It was,
It was?
yes.
So who, I mean, they ignored it or overlooked it or?
If I could suggest that we don't turn all of our cards face up in the what ifs and allow the process to be undertaken to say, here's where we are, here's what we would like to be able to do, tell us whether or not that's a problem. Depending on their answer, we may have a second go at it, but let's not try to solve it here when we're requesting something from the entity that's given us the money in the past.
The situation is as gray as the hair on my head.
That's pretty bad.
Well, are you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for the energy invested in this. We'll work it and I hope give you an answer that's helpful. The next item of business is a presentation on the nation's semi-quincentennial. And if you're able to pronounce the word semi-quincentennial, you're ahead of the game. I now know who Lauren Fogarty is because she stood up to bring the presentation. Thank you for your patience with us.
Of course.
And I'm glad that you're here with us. She is the program coordinator for the Department of State regarding this celebration that is going to happen a couple of years from now.
It's 989 days today.
But who's counting, right?
30 months. Hello, my name is Lauren Fogarty, and I'm the program coordinator for the Rhode Island Semi-Quincentennial 250th Commission, or RI 250. I know it's a mouthful. I'm so happy to hear about the work surrounding Little Compton's 350th in 2025. In 2026, we're set to mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. For some, this milestone may elicit memories of the excitement associated with the bicentennial period of our nation during the 1970s. I'm here today on behalf of Secretary of State Greg Amore to bring attention to this tremendous opportunity for each community across the state and nation alike. Thank you for having me here today in the beautiful town of Little Compton to promote programming for the semi-quincentennial. RI 250 has been charged with developing ways to recognize and honor this anniversary in our state. The mission of the commission is to commemorate the 250th anniversary of our nation, the events throughout history in which our beautiful state has had a massive influence, and our largely forgotten role in the formulation of our nation. Most notably, our contribution to the ideals of freedom, equality, and independence. We at the commission are most excited to help facilitate this milestone statewide and years-long, multifaceted commemoration. We intend to engage as many Rhode Islanders as possible, and we believe the natural next step is to organize at the municipal level. One of the duties of the commission is to collaborate with local organizations to promote the pivotal role that Rhode Island played in the founding of our country. And therefore, we would like to take this time to invite Little Compton to organize events and programming for the 250th anniversary to encourage further public participation through events that highlight Rhode Island's diversity. This will be an easy addition to the 350th work already underway in this community. Our neighbors in South Kingstown have been celebrating their 300th anniversary this year. The programming, academic resources, and public engagement have been significant. The programming, I already said that. The town has marked this unique milestone with a lecture series on the town's history, bonfires, and elevated regular events like their Arts and Culture Festival and something that they like to call River Fire. The town will install a 14-foot sculpture designed by the influence of their history and identity as a community in their town green. The opportunities are really endless. Commemorative events like the semi-quincentennial can bring communities together and promote a sense of identity. There is so much progress to celebrate. During my time with RI 250, many people look back on the bicentennial with fond memories, and I think we can make this the best commemoration yet. Secretary Amore envisions coordinated projects with municipalities that can include pop-up archives presentations. Today, I've brought a small collection of the formative documents of Little Compton and a collection of photographs that are maintained by the state archives. These documents range from an act to incorporate the 5 towns, Bristol, Tiverton, Little Compton, Warren, and Cumberland in 1746, the incorporation documents of St. Catherine's Church circa 1939, and photographs from across the town in the early 1920s. This is an example of the types of displays that can be curated at an LC 350 event as well as a 250 event following. Of course, in coordination with the Rhode Island Department of State and the State Archives. Secretary Amore hopes to coordinate projects with each municipalities, including an evergreen program such as the planting of elm trees or a red maple. We're still figuring that out in town greens, and therefore I come to you today to urge this council to extend the planning for the 350th into 2026 to help us mark the nation's 250th milestone.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions? I have not received a thumbs up from what we call LC 350 committee, but I believe that answer will be what you expect. And I can tell you that we will be pleased to begin that preparation as part of what we're doing, with the idea that it would follow the subsequent year. And we might even use some of the same trees.
We're committed to helping in any way and making both milestones that much.
Thanks.
What sort of resources is the Secretary of State's office offering to communities that want to help?
So currently we are constricted by the current budget. We're increasing our budget request this year. So the hope is in the following fiscal year, we'll be able to elevate the rest of the municipalities as the years come. We're working with the Rhode Island Historical Society as our fiscal agent to begin fundraising. So there is hope that we will be able to assist the communities in their programming and events in the future.
Any other questions? Lauren, thank you very much.
And I'll leave these here for you guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's it. I'll leave these here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Any action necessary? I think we've got that, and we can move forward. New business 2, receive proposals for engineering services for the reconstruction of the town tennis courts and consider assigning review and recommendation for the November 2nd meeting. Councilor McKee, you take the lead on this as the clerk opens the.
All right, this is from Activitas, I believe is how you pronounce that. Well, let me pass one down and maybe you can find it faster than me. Oh, I open this one. Another one, Bob?
Are they all the same, Carol?
Well, these are, yeah. But these are going to be given to the committee that's going to review them. So
Right.
if you see one tonight, you're going to have to give it back to me. Can't keep it.
The bid itself is on page 39.
Thank you.
One's on tab, the third tab. Right, and this one is from CHA Engineering Services.
Pass them off, whatever.
Oh, really?
Okay.
No, yes. You can give it to those for them to look at for now.
The bid itself is on tab 3, second page.
So the proposed fee from CHA is $79,900. And the proposed fee from Activitas is $44,690. For whatever reason, the expenses are not total, but
My opinion here is I think we should take these both, the ad hoc committee, and interview both of these engineers, and come back to the council for the November 2nd meeting with a recommendation.
Is that a motion?
That is, you can make that a motion.
Second.
the motion is made and seconded to refer these bids to the committee and to have them returned to the next meeting with a recommendation. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I will want all of those back so that I can make enough copies for your ad hoc committee.
Thank you.
Well, tossing down that way.
The next item of business is a request from Caroline Wilkie Wardell for the town's tree lighting to be scheduled for December 3rd at 5 PM in conjunction with the 30th annual Ben and Chet Wilkie Memorial Tree Spree, which will be held at the school.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thanks. Next is to consider proclaiming the week October 30th through November 3rd as National Veterans Small Business Week in Little Compton.
Motion to allow the town council president to sign this resolution proclamation.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Unfortunately, the veteran small business counselor is not here this evening due to an illness, but I'm sure he'll be happy to have done so. Thank you. The next item is a Board of License Commissioners request for a one-day retail beverage license for a surf and turf dinner at the game club.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Communications, a request from the Village Improvement Society to use Veterans Field, May 4th, 2024 for the Secaucus Plant Fair, August 3rd, 2024 for the annual chicken barbecue.
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
A copy of an electronic public notice received from DEM to change the existing state groundwater regulations and surface water quality regulations. Comments are to be sent by December 31st. A public hearing was held earlier today prior to this council meeting.
Does the solicitor have any information on this, about what this is about?
This is a normal rulemaking procedure by DEM. Basically, what they need to do is give notice to all interested stakeholders to make comments before these new regulations are adopted.
Okay, so it looks like it says substances and man-made fluorinated chemicals, so they're gonna, I guess that's just, they're gonna be checking waters for that. Obviously, we have private wells here, so I'm not sure that's gonna do anything for us.
This goes after the PFAS, those synthetic chemicals that are in things. I think it's mandated by the federal government.
Well, motion to place on file.
Second.
Discussion on placing it on file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next is a letter from 6 individuals offering their concerns about the dangers and risks of offshore wind projects.
I'm going to recuse myself on this since I was called out by a citizen about any wind farm discussion.
I'd recommend put it on file.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to place the matter on file. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
A request from Ella Barrett and Ian Gale to use Town Landing on June 15th, 2024 at 4 PM for their wedding ceremony.
Motion to approve all the local stipulations adhered to.
I will second that.
Do we want to put any stipulations about high surf on there, or?
No ruts.
Yeah, no ruts.
They're getting married, no break.
Pack in the cars.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the request, subject to a host of items that have been alluded to. Are there any further discussion? Are you ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And a request for the town council to declare the month of November as Family Court Awareness Month.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion's made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The payment of bills.
Motion to pay the bills is written.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
That being the agenda for the evening, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation.
We don't have that on our agenda. That's why I said, if there was something on the agenda you wanted to talk about, you needed to put your hand up.
Fair.
If it's not on the agenda, then it can't be discussed.
It was a thank you, but nonetheless.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
I'll just leave it to
Thank you.
the camera.
Carol, can